Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our members and guests. My name is Stephen Longmire, and I'm this year's president of the Digital Imaging Association. Due to the global pandemic, we've opted to continue to hold our meetings, however, in a virtual setting, and this will in fact be our 5th webinar. The two key mandates of the Digital Imaging Association are to provide education and networking opportunities for our members. At this time, we'll have to forego the networking aspect for everyone's safety, but I hope you find the educational contingent worthwhile, and we look forward to your feedback. Our membership is comprised of pre-press, printers, packaging converters, designers, advertisers, print buyers, equipment and consumable manufacturers, and vendors. If you're with us as a guest today, please consider joining the Digital Imaging Association. Today's session is an example of the high caliber of meetings that we run. And if you'd like more information on membership, please contact either myself or Marg McLeod at 416-254-4941 or Marg, M-A-R-G, at digitalimagingassociation.com. Like most trade associations today, financial stability does not come from membership revenues alone. And so we turn to the vendors and suppliers to support our goals as an association. We're honored to continue to receive the support and recognition of the DIA's contribution to the growth and development of the graphic imaging science industry from the following companies. Our platinum sponsors are Canon, EFI, HP, Konica Minolta, and Spicers. Our gold sponsors are Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, and Heidelberg. We ask you to please consider these companies and their demonstrated support of the industry when making your purchasing decisions. And the technology for this webinar today has been generously provided by HP. The topic for today's webinar is Veer into Packaging, a panel discussion on what is involved in the packaging industry in the way of opportunities and challenges for commercial printers who are contemplating expanding into packaging. Our panel today will consist of myself, Stephen Longmire, who's the moderator, National Sales Manager from Sydney Stone and President of the Digital Imaging Association. I joined Sydney Stone in November of 2020, and as mentioned, this year serving President for the DIA. As well, I'd like to introduce Ray Fagan, Sales Specialist, Sheet-Fed, Post-Press, Packaging, and Digital Heidelberg, Canada. Working with Heidelberg for over 25 years, after many years in the print trade, Ray started as the Toronto showroom manager. From there, he moved into a sales and product support role with the Canadian sales team and is currently a sales specialist responsible for all sheet-fed and post-press packaging equipment, as well as the Versifier digital product line. Other tasks include marketing activities in Canada, and Ray is also the direct liaison with the German factory for product support and demonstrations. Ray states that one of the highlights of the job is presenting the Heidelberg products at trade fairs such as Drupa. As well, we have April Burke with us today. April is the Vice President of Operations at Bellwick Packaging Solutions. Prior to joining Bellwick, April was VP Operational Support at Lowe Martin in Ottawa for 11 years. And prior to that, Vice President of Manufacturing for McLaren, Morris, and Todd in Toronto. April is a graduate of Ryerson and holds a Bachelor of Technology degree in Graphic Communications Management. As well, joining us today is Dr. Thomas Grebel. Thomas started his career with the Huber Group as a chemist involved in formulating UV inks and first generation conventional low migration inks. He then became product manager, sheet fed and UV for Huber Italia with focus on spot color blending. Thomas moved to the US in 2007 as project manager, spot color mixing systems. In 2008, Thomas moved to Huber Brampton as technical director and has been in his current position for 7 years. Thomas has a PhD in chemistry and polymer chemistry from the Technical University of Munich. Also joining us today, Mike Millard, Director of Pre-Press Services, Health and Safety Manager at Ellis Packaging, servicing a multitude of companies for pre-press services, running a multi-million-dollar company specializing in all aspects of printing in a variety of print type companies. Mike has been responsible for system startups and implementation. He set up training requirements for staff and is Kaizen and ISO trained, Health and Safety Level 2 certification. Mike has been involved in all aspects of pre-press, from staffing and training a department to running Prinergy, Rampage, and ESCO workflow systems. Fine commercial sheet-fed print to full web, half web companies, direct mail to folding carton. And Mike is also a past president of the DIA. Also joining us today is Rich Pulpit. Rich is a second-generation printer growing up in the halls of one of Toronto's premier print shops. He learned the craft from his father, Carl Pulpit, who founded the company in 1969. Collaborating with some of the country's best graphic designers, Rich and his Flash team managed to push the boundaries of the print medium, creating inspiring and award-winning results all day, every day. Flash today is one of Canada's leading printing operations in its ability to combine experienced craftsmanship with sophisticated technology to deliver innovative and effective projects. In addition to its continual investment in new technologies and strategic positioning, Flash is highly focused on customer service and understanding the critical trends of marketing and design. So for today's panel discussion, I'd like to encourage our attendees as well to submit questions through the chat icon. If you would like them directed to a specific member of our panel, please indicate the panelist's name in the question. If not, I will pose the question to the panel as a whole. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ray Fagan to lead us off.
Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciate the introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first DIA webinar of 2021. And let's hope for the opportunity to meet again in person later this year and greet each other once again in person. Today's meeting will focus on the packaging market in Canada, mostly related to the folding carton segment. And I'm sure our panelists will have some very interesting insight for you. The last year has seen changes and challenges in the folding carton segment. With cloud-based data platforms, the ability exists today to collect real-time data from presses installed around the world. As an example of this, Heidelberg has been monitoring print volume levels from their install base all over the world, especially since the COVID crisis hit last March. What we have been able to observe was a large increase in most segments of folding carton production during April, May, and June of last year, as store shelves emptied due to the panic purchasing and the requirement of folding carton producers to help restock those shelves. The balance of the year seen a return to normal folding carton volume production for most producers, meaning that the industry was quite healthy. On the other side of the spectrum, commercial printers were hit hard by the pandemic and suffered large drops in volume. In some cases, we witnessed up to 60% loss in business in almost a 1 month turnaround. He simply stopped during the lockdown. These circumstances forced many commercial printers to reevaluate their portfolio and look at other revenue streams for growth. Some switched to production of COVID-needed products, for example, such as mass production, while others looked to the stability of that folding carton market that they were observing and other packaging productions such as flexo products and soft packaging came into their sight lines. But entering these segments brings a lot of challenges, many unforeseen. It is not just about having the proper equipment, but workflow, design, and a fundamental understanding of carton production must be learned or acquired. Relationships between producer and vendor is critical in this arena, and supply of material a critical resource. Filling lines cannot just sit idle while awaiting boxes to arrive at the plant. Packaging's production, what we see, is somewhat regional in Canada as well. Quebec, for example, has a large packaging market and has plants producing on VLF or large format presses exist out there in quite abundant supply. And they supply mostly the food packaging and store shelf products, part of the folding carton industry. Ontario has a vibrant packaging industry, but mostly focused in the 40-inch sheet size segment, and a focus on cosmetic and pharma production is more prevalent. West of Winnipeg, there are very few folding carton printers north of the border, which may indicate that commercial printers may have an opportunity for short run production or support run production from larger producers on the south side of the border. As well, the packaging industry itself is undergoing changes of its own in many respects. Decreased run lengths and increased SKUs increase stress on production, and environmental and sustainable production is increasingly sought after by end users and vendors. This puts additional stress on production, as oftentimes producers are forced to change consumable products and meet stricter guidelines. There does appear to be a boutique market developing as small shops and restaurants look for more diversified and customer-driven products. For example, curbside pickup, a whole new market. That may generate some work that larger packaging companies may not be too interested in, but time will tell. And this has been harder to gauge during these times. But enough from me. It's time to turn the audience over to our panelists and shed some light on these and other topics. Please enjoy the skill set of this group, and I pass it back to you, Stephen. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Ray, for the introduction. At this point, I'd like to allow our panelists to just have a brief sort of introduction, maybe talk a little bit about what they've noticed in the last maybe 12 months in terms of this new condition. I'd like to start with April. I'll just go in the same order that I introduced the panel in. So April, if you'd like to just to say a few words.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I think the last 12 months, I don't think any of us have really experienced this, whether it's our personal lives or our professional lives, for sure. I think from a packaging perspective, we've seen an array of environments from our customers, whether you're in an environment or working with a customer that has been shut down or a packaging customer that continues on during these times. I think at the beginning, we saw customers kind of doing what we were all doing, going out and buying lots of toilet paper and paper towel, doing a little bit of panic buying with cartons and trying to stock up because, you know, they weren't sure where the world was going to be. And I think there has been some normalcy come back into the packaging as customers start to settle back in. However, as we're all experiencing the second wave of COVID, we're seeing some instability again in the marketplace. But I think packaging for the most part is pretty stable across the board. There are some markets of the packaging industry that have, you know, seen some downward conditions with COVID, but overall, I think there's been probably more uptick in packaging than there has been downtick.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, April. Thomas, if you wouldn't mind just speaking a little bit about what you've observed.
Yes, hello everybody, and thanks for having me on, Stephen. We from the Huber Group as an ink supplier, we experienced a similar scenario as just described by April Berg. We've seen a crazy uptick when the COVID crisis hit last year, March, April, and we as Huber Group are heavily involved into packaging. Also, the majority of our business is packaging business, and in that area, a lot of food packaging, and our volumes in that segment, they spiked, I would say, plus 30% for at least 6 months, especially when it comes to food. As April said, also other segments of the packaging, like more luxury pharmaceuticals, they had a little bit of a dip when the COVID crisis hit. And for us, the overall volumes were still up, even if we consider a little bit of compounding by the loss in commercial business. Towards the end of the year, we got a little bit of a normalcy to it in the volumes. But I would say year over year, we still see a light uptick, increase about 10% of our normal levels that we've seen, let's say, over a year, December, January, a year ago.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Mike, do you have any observations you'd like to share?
Yeah, like I was saying, what April was saying too, it's still we're still setting records from a year ago. We don't seem to be slowing down much here at Ellis. But I think some of the things too is you do see a massive increase in some takeout food, believe it or not, that we print for. But other things, like companies that aren't necessarily critical companies to remain open, like Crayola or cosmetics aren't moving as fast, I guess, because a lot of people aren't going out and obviously putting on as much makeup. But other than that, I would say that for sure, food, people are cooking at home, and you're just seeing massive amounts of, well, basically triple in some cases, of everything from rice cartons right on through to spaghetti packages to you name it. It's just crazy. 300,000 6 weeks. 300. I've never seen anything like it, and even drugs have gone up too. People are taking more vitamins, so all those aspects right then have increased our volumes. I think the biggest thing is we used to have, our customers are used to say a 3, 2, 3, and they expected the same with tripling our volumes. But so we're now like 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, depending on which Ellis facility. So the adjustments have to be made there too at their end. They're just trying to keep up with consumer demand, but we've had to increase our staffing. So then there was, of course, the training involved of running die cutters and gluers and things so that we could run more shifts around the clock, 7 days a week. Staff kind of really caught us off guard. I think it caught the world off guard too. So yeah, there was also, again, with staffing issues and making those machines work right around the clock. So those are some of the things off the top of my head that in corrugate too, of course, you getting corrugates 4 weeks out and board, everything kind of had to turn up the volume for packaging industry. So that's my take so far.
Rich, do you have a few observations you'd like to share as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of on both sides of the coin. We're a commercial shop as well as the packaging that we do. So yeah, we've seen a shift, basically, more growth in the packaging side of things, and it kind of balances out with the dip on the commercial side of things. So helps keep us balanced, which is good. But yeah, I mean, the general trends just globally throughout the whole economy seem to be just that trends that were trending in one direction are just taking a giant leap forward, kind of 10 years of trending packed into one calendar year. And that's kind of what we're seeing with the packaging side of our business. Like it's growing a hell of a lot faster, but we knew it was growing anyway. So it's not particularly surprising seeing how everything is shifting in the direction it was shifting. It's just doing it a lot faster. Oh, my voice. Anyways, yeah, so that's what we're noticing. We do a lot of short run packaging, a lot of luxury packaging, case bound and hard case packaging, obviously flexible as well. But the point is, ours is really more kind of in the niche short run. So we are noticing a lot of new startups. That's something that's happening quite a bit. People starting their side business and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's where we kind of play, is in the front end side of things, of the prototyping and the short run and the launch of smaller businesses, usually in the luxury space through our design contacts. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. For the first question I'd like to pose to the panel, actually Mike touched on it a little bit, but in terms of inventory being a major consideration for packaging printers or even commercial printers, I know there was a trend kind of just-in-time shipping, not carrying basically necessarily a large inventory of certain products that would take up a lot of physical space. How was the last 9 to 12 months in terms of that? Was it a supply, almost a shortage in some ways, where you had to almost over-order to secure inventories, or how was that for both of your, or actually all three of your segments?
Well, I think we saw a little bit of everything, really. In some cases, for raw material supplies, we've had to increase some of our supplies throughout. We have a plant on the West Coast that is Flexo Labels, and we're certainly seeing some supply challenges there with label material. We've all talked already about corrugate. So from that perspective, I think supplies have been an issue, supply and demand just in the market, and also just the impact on the corrugate is really the e-commerce world, and everybody's at home ordering online, so that's creating some of the shortage that we're experiencing on the corrugate side of things. From a customer perspective with inventories, again, I think it's the same type of effect where we've had customers, you're working on relationships where you're working to more a just-in-time environment. And now, again, because of the unknowns of COVID, they've started to build some inventory. So I think you're experiencing both sides of the coin right now on both the raw materials and the customer sides.
I agree 100%. I think they were panicking a little bit. Our customers, by ordering more, and they may not necessarily have needed it. They're maybe concerned, but back in the beginning stages too, is that what would happen? Oh my God, if Ella's closed, So I think they were over ordering to build up, like April's saying, about their own personal inventory, so that they could keep the supply chain going to the stores. Yeah, so absolutely, for sure. I think that's a good point.
Perfect. Rich, do you have any comments at all?
Again, our volumes are low. We're kind of lots of small projects. So yeah, getting a volume of materials has not been an issue for us. So yeah, it not on our side of the coin. No, it's been okay there.
Oh, perfect. I have a question that's actually been submitted by one of our attendees today. General question to the panel. Have you seen your customers asking for folding carton product changes due to COVID? Are they using this time to work with their print partners on ideation preparation for a post-COVID business transaction?
Maybe start. I think we're still seeing lots of development happening with customers. I'm not necessarily sure if it's specific to COVID or due to COVID. I think probably on the pharmaceutical side, certain aspects of that have been more volume oriented with customers, personal care, vitamin C, all those types of things. And I think Mike mentioned that earlier about the increases there, but I wouldn't say that, product launches or ideation preparation has really changed because of COVID. And maybe Rich might be better to answer that because he talks a lot about smaller upstart companies. So I think that's certainly been, something that's probably, we're seeing some people who are maybe no longer employed with their former employers and looking at new entrepreneurial opportunities. And you're seeing some of that. But from our perspective, nothing that we could actually connect to COVID specifically.
Yeah, for us, we've seen a lot of influencer packages that we do a lot of as well. Just people focusing on the unboxing experience. Those are kind of more for our commercial clients who want to get some of their product out to influencers in really creative and beautiful packaging, so it's not missed or gone unnoticed. So we've definitely seen an increase in kind of the influencer packaging side of things. And yeah, the upstarts, a lot of those. We kind of have always been in that position as far as, I don't know, the double-edged sword of startups is that, because of working in low volume on the packaging side of things for us, when we're working with a client, we help them launch the project and we help design the box, and one of two things happens. Either it doesn't work out and we never see him again, or it works out and we never see him again. Either way. So yeah, we're kind of funneling over to the bigger shops, like Bellwick and Ellis, right? But yeah, I mean, that's just where we sit, and that is what it is, and that's how we're tooled, and frankly, that's kind of what we have fun doing. So
Oh, perfect. Another question that actually was submitted by one of our attendees today was, has sustainable packaging become more prevalent during this time?
Yes, for sure. From my side, that has always been a bit part of the conversation, more and more so lately. But it's almost ubiquitous. Like every single conversation, people are considering footprint and whatever. The only problem I would say is that more often than not, they're considering optics more than the reality. And if you get into a discussion with somebody about the reality of sustainability, you know, recycling and bleaching versus virgin pulp, and just, you know, when you dig right down as to what actually impacts the environment, and they get hung up on less trees being cut down. And if you get into a conversation with them about responsible foresting and, you know, the carbon emissions of old growth versus new growth, and like all of the real nuts and bolts of what really affects our environment, they either glaze over or they actually get a little frustrated because they're just like, can I just have a logo that I put on the thing that tells everybody I'm good? I'm like, oh, I get it. You don't actually want to do any good. You just want to look as though you're doing good. Different conversation, my bad. So yeah, we do see a lot of that. And I like to think that sometimes we have converts to actually making an impact, and not making paper the enemy, which you know has happened for many years. But it's a difficult thing for us to educate on as well, because from our point of view, you know, obviously promoting paper products is in our collective best interest. Everybody on this panel, probably everybody listening. So it's hard to say, no, believe me, this is good, and this is not good, and whatever, you know, because it does work in our favor to push towards you know, renewable resources as opposed to necessarily recycled and that sort of thing, which are also good as well. But it's about the mix, right? And we're not a very I don't know, trusted narrator in that situation, because we do have skin in the game, right? So, but it would be nice if people were focused more on actually making a difference, as opposed to, you know, making sure that everybody believes that they're making a difference.
Yeah, I think, like you said too, it's if the big guys want foil stamping and things on their package and hollow coats and things like that, you know, you can abide them, but yeah, again, we're FSC and SFI, like a lot of printers are, but at the end of the day, if they want it standing out and fancy and everything else, unfortunately, you know, it's not all that sustainable when it hits the recycling shelf. So because we all know that you've been to a mill, the metal can play havoc with the metal in a carton can play havoc with them when they're doing CCMB boards. So, but yeah, I don't here at LS, we don't see anything different. The carton was really shiny before, and now it's not, so to speak. You know, they seem to stick with that. If they're going to foil stamp or they're going to put certain types of coatings on it or whatever, they're continuing to do that. We're not seeing one way or the other really too much. Sometimes they'll go to a craft board to make it look more like a tree, and we'll print on craft board. But at the end of the day, it's still board, and you know, it is recyclable, but we're not seeing too much of a difference there, or a trend towards sustainability at this particular point in time.
I think from my perspective is that, you know, I think there's a bit of a split, a little bit of what Mike said. You know, some customers will always want the bright, shiny box that's going to maintain their brand image on the shelf or their position wherever they're located. And then you have the other customers who are, you know, conscious of it. But I think what's going to start to happen, and what is happening, is just global discussions about the planet and how we're all contributing to it. And I think just those natural pressures around the world and in our own backyards will start to create those discussions from our customers. And much to what Rich highlighted is that, you know, what is the definition of sustainability by that customer or our own companies, and what does it really mean to each of us, and how we want to contribute, and what do we really want to do? Do we just want to say that we can put a logo on it, or are we really committed to working to contributing to making improvements in the planet and protecting the world that we live in? So those are, you know, pretty, you know, opposite ends of the spectrums of how sustainability is really being handled in the printing industry. And I think we as advocates have to continue to talk about it as well, because we kind of get a bit of a bad rap because we are in the printing industry. And I think the printing industry has led for many, many years, moving to a more environmental friendly and manufacturing sector than other sectors have. And we've done it on our own without having to be legislated. It's just something that the industry's been committed to.
Saving water, changing lighting in the building, improving our carbon footprints, in other ways. Basically, as Ray knows, you buy newer equipment, you're not wasting make-ready waste away or going digital. Your make-ready waste is lower. Vegetable inks, they're being used. Water base, so there's lots of things that we're doing and going on. Our processors, plate processors, are using less water. So all these things are taking place. It's just not necessarily on the paper, but all the equipment that surrounds it, is being improved for the environment. So, yeah.
Next question is actually for Thomas, but definitely the other panelists can weigh in too in terms of the applications of this. But Thomas, is there any legislation that you see forthcoming into Canada in relation to food packaging? To move to low migration or UV inks more? I know in Europe that there are much stricter mandates in terms of low migration inks in food packaging specifically. Are you aware of anything that's kind of coming down the pipe here?
That's correct, Stephen. Also, Europe is definitely ahead of the curve compared to North America, including Canada and the USA. Actually, I don't see anything currently coming down the pipe, but when you look at Health Canada, they already have similar requirements too when it comes especially to food packaging, like the packaging cannot import any deterioration of the packaged food. So that's not allowed and has to be excluded and avoided. It's like in the whole North America, also talking about Canada and USA, if something like is driven towards low migration, it's coming more from the brand owners. The brands drive that, like big brands like Kellogg's, they demand the use of low migration inks in many sectors of their business. So it's driven by brand owners, less on a legislative way.
Okay. Is that what the print panelists are finding as well too? Is it your customers that are sort of speccing that within jobs? The brand owners?
Well, I think depending on the type of packaging you're producing, definitely you'll see certain requirements or regulation requirements that you have to produce, and that just comes naturally with certain segments of the packaging industry.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Actually, I have another question from an attendee. We've had quite a few coming in today. In packaging to serve the direct food industry, what are the panel's experiences on the regulation for any printers to getting into that market sector? So kind of ties on to the previous one. So.
Can you maybe just repeat that, Steve?
Oh, sure. In packaging to serve the direct food industry, what are the panel's experiences of regulation for any printer to getting into that market? So I guess, do you have to educate almost the person that's trying to get into the food packaging about sort of what they need to hit, or are they coming in kind of aware as how I'm inferring that question to be asked?
Well, I think there's a couple things there. I think depending on the product, certainly they're going to have the knowledge of what regulations are required. And then as a vendor partner, you're going to have to make sure that you can conform to those regulations. And I think it's probably a two-way conversation where both parties will have to be well-versed in what they're producing and the regulations around it. Not sure if I've answered the question.
Yeah, I guess I could infer a couple different, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, I mean,
Mike, sorry.
It's okay. Pack Secure, of course, is one of the things that is being required for us to supply the Walmarts or Hershey's or whatever and the Mars. They turn around and they're demanding that we have these certificates that we've passed and that we are able to produce their printed product to secure codes. I mean, it's all about risk factors and in removing the risk factors from contamination. So there's all different steps a company has to take within itself in order to meet those standards. And it's an annual recognition too for that. So especially like I say with the food, they're getting more stringent as far as requirements that if they're going to put food in it, that they do want the the least amount of risk and contamination possible to the final printed product that will eventually food be put in it. So,
I would just add to Mike's comment there, along with all of those regulations comes with plant audits and process audits and documentation audits that you have to be able to support and supply as well.
yes, lots of audits. Yes.
Perfect. Another question is, when it comes to capital equipment expenditures, what areas do you prioritize? And given kind of the name of the session today, so if you were a commercial printer or looking to move into, say, a packaging role, where would you prioritize? Would it be production devices or finishing? Would you be looking to utilize and leverage the production devices you have maybe and move into different finishing equipment to do that, and why?
I'd say that definitely depends on what you have, obviously. I imagine, I mean, if you're, it's really, to me, as far as getting into it, I mean, it's about the digital front end, right? The digital print, because I mean, the capital expenditure required to compete with our friends here at Bellwick and Ellis is astronomical. So yeah, I mean, if you want to compete with me, it might be a little easier. So yeah, then it's about getting some digital front end that can handle thicker substrates and die cutters, folders, gluers, sort of thing. You kind of need the whole shoot and match. It's hard to actually be a solution to anyone, really, if you're brokering out portions of the job. Obviously, having partners to support you when the volumes get massive or when you're just overwhelmed makes sense. But yeah, unfortunately, you kind of need the entire chain, both with the print engine and the finishing, in order to actually be a presence. That's my point of view. I don't know what you guys think, April, Mike.
Yeah, I think you're right on there, Rich, because just to the point that Mike and I just raised about all the certifications and the audits, if you think you can do some packaging in-house and then outsource some of it without authorization or permission to do so, then you could risk the business relationship and your contracts. So it's definitely a workflow environment that you have to get into packaging. And to me, it's not just the hard iron or the big pieces of equipment, it's all the tool sets that go along with it. There's a lot of we have a QA lab that has lab testing equipment that we do on site. It's all those other peripheral components of packaging that you have to be responsible for and liable for. And so that comes along with it. So it's just not, having a big hunk of iron in the middle of the plant. It's all the other things that go along with it. So I think if you're getting into it, you have to consider the whole dynamic of packaging and what it really means and what markets you're going to serve. Like we said earlier, some of the markets, if you're not in, food or pharmaceutical, you might be in a different other segment of packaging that has less regulation and restrictions. So then that workflow has a different landscape versus a pharmaceutical or a food environment.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, the QA labs with your slip resistance and slide and rub coefficients, you have to have the people there that understand that equipment. So yeah, along with being astronomical costs for the die cutters and the different types of finishing devices, gluing and stripping department, you've got you got a die cutting, people that have to know die cutting and how to set it up and deal with different thicknesses, board, the presses, obviously where ours are built up on platforms so that you can run, because it is board, you don't get as many to a skid, so you want to run higher skids. So there's a lot of things involved, but like April said, if you're after a lower running, not too thick a board, you want to kind of stay away from the food industry and pharmaceutical with the regulations that are in place for those types of customers. Then for sure. Again, it's there. It's just that it's an entirely different aspect that we deal with here, and in I guess you could say like the main big runners and the chicken wings and all the other stuff that we do. So yeah, there's a lot involved, and a lot of it has to do with people too. You have to have that knowledge out on the floor, and I think when COVID hit, I think that, and we were trying to find die cutters and glue operators to utilize our machines, all of them 24/7. That was a hard, and still remains a hard factor, trying to find the people all of a sudden. They're not just floating around out there. So yeah, so those are my 2 cents worth.
Stephen, is it too late to change the title of this seminar to scaring people away from
Bullying people out of the market? Well, actually, that's a great point too, because there are obviously segments you could grow into. I guess that would be a role for like digital print devices for sure, because you can do smaller runs, versioning, boutique prototyping, things like that. Where does the panel see digital fitting into the packaging mix? Is it a growth market or more auxiliary, or like obviously there's certain applications where it makes sense. How do you see the future of this?
For me, I use a couple of digital printers, and they're for runs 200, 500, 800, and sometimes they have a little one-up die that they make for me, and they can do it cheaper than putting it through our estimating department to run those kind of quantities. I think some of the things that also we're looking at too is getting the latest and greatest cutting tables too, so that if they do print, a digital printer does knock off 400, 500, 600, then we can hand cut them and glue them on site here. But again, a lot of the digital printers, the bigger ones, they do have the high speed cutting tables and that, so they don't have to go out and get dies. So, but yeah, I do use them. We probably use them every couple of weeks. We'll use a digital printer for some smaller items for sure.
That's a great point too, because with the ability of having like the flat bed cutting systems, you're not having to produce dies, which will take time obviously, and then physically storing them. And especially if you're developing with a customer, their actual finished piece, you're almost working with them to collaborate and design and do it. You need that digital cutting option for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, actually, that kind of rolls. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, from my point of view, the vast majority of our packaging is on our digital, like our UV inkjet. Still the vast majority of the work that we do in the shop is on our Heidelbergs, but most of that is book work and gallery work and magazines and that sort of thing. So if a packaging job gets to the point where it's running on our offset equipment, then we're likely not involved at that point. So it's just how our makeup works in our shop is, we have a B2 digital option, so we can do pretty high volumes there. But when it gets into the tens of thousands, it's just not, that's just not us for packaging, simple as that. So digital is really important for us in this conversation about packaging.
I think,
Go ahead, sorry.
I think digital and offset, I think it's just the reality of our industry. It's a marriage, and there's going to be products in that really fit the digital world, and there's products that really still fit the traditional offset world. And I think we as participants in the industry have to realize that it's going to be a long-term thing. It's not something that's just going to go away anymore, because there is, lots of opportunity on the short run side today, just because of how the marketplace has positioned itself, and just the technology on the digital side. If you look at, our host today, HP, and some of the other players who've come along in developing digital packaging solutions for us to use, it's come a long way. So I just see it's a unique marriage that's always going to be part of our industry. It's just a matter of who your customer base is and where it fits in your workflow.
Perfect. Actually, I have a question too that was sent in from one of our panelists here. It says, to Bellwick and Ellis, do you see the potential, to partner with people like Flash to do some of your short run work for a smaller customer, or for, I would extrapolate on that, and for like prototyping and or versioning?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Because prototypes, a lot of the time, they'll want us to turn around and say, okay, well, we want 500 or whatever to set up, and we're going to try running it through our fulfillment machines, and they'll kind of need that. And sometimes the bigger guys they'll pay, and they don't care how much it costs. But then there's the ones that they're starting up, and we had a little straw manufacturer for straws, the individual, and they wanted to see how easy it was for hand fulfillment, and so we had to do up about 400 or 500 boxes, and then so that they could actually get a price for the marketplace on how much they paid and how fast they could fill those cartons up and what was the best design. So we do have our own design team here that does work with Ardios CAD and ESCO, but for sure the companies that have design, if they don't have design capabilities, for sure that's great, because they could do the whole front end part, and for smaller companies too, and create those fulfillment lines before the job goes live. So yeah.
Perfect. There you go, Rich.
Well, what do you know?
There's another question. This is probably the most questions I've had submitted on one of our webinars by the attendees, which is great. It kind of goes to the caliber of the panel that we have as a whole, which is great. Who is servicing all the new boutique businesses that are now showing up online and filling delivery trucks with packages? Do they buy blank boxes and label, or are they purchasing short run packaging? Probably a mix of both would be my thoughts, but I'll defer to the panel.
Yeah, certainly that's a little bit of what we've seen with some of the startup customers we've had. Some of them are digital, will go the digital world. Some are using the traditional packaging printer, but I think you're going to see a mix of both. Again, depending on the volumes that they're dealing with, because even some of the startups have, some nice size volumes, and certainly e-commerce and e-platforms are taking taking it to another world, right? The market's now global, right, in their products. So we've have some customers who are actually, doing the majority of their business on the web, and their volumes are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, I've got nothing else to add to that. What April said, it really is just what she said. I mean, it's partnering up sometimes, but yeah, nothing we've seen at Alice really changed because of people ordering online, but yeah, we didn't all of a sudden get boxes to put sweaters in or something that they would order online. Like, we haven't seen any kind of those kind of customer demands or anything has changed. But for maybe Flash or something, maybe when you're talking 2,000-3,000 things that maybe never used to be put in a box now are, then for sure. But here we haven't really noticed it any different. Like I said, there's been no increase that way. It's more of just like I had said about the volumes with food and medicine and alcohol that have really gone off. But yeah.
On our side, the most of the kind of micro brands that we're working with are direct to consumer, but their brand is really all they have. It's really important to them to create an ethos around their brand and for the packaging to be beautiful. Packaging is becoming more and more important, even though ironically people aren't picking them off shelves as much as they used to. So that used to be the focus of packaging, is making sure that it jumps off the shelf and you really want it and that sort of thing. But now it's more around communicating your brand through your package, and making sure that that unboxing experience is a good one, and that it's kind of your first impression of the brand when it comes up, how it's packaged and that sort of thing. Now, at that point, you've already bought it. But, you know, with social media and everything, word spreads really fast. So, yeah, so people aren't, I guess what I'm saying with that is that there isn't a lot of, you know, over labeling, pre-made packaging from our point of view. I think if we're involved, they've already, you know, dispensed with that concept, because that's really just utilitarian way of getting it in your client's hand. Whereas the brands we're working with are more focused on making sure that they're making an impact with their packaging. So
it's a really good point, Rich. You're no longer the battle of the shelf, but it's also almost like a silent salesperson now. Post-purchase is the packaging for you. So kind of reassuring that person that they want to build again. It's the quality, it's the experience. Absolutely. A bit of a different question here in terms of kind of as you forecast or how you see packaging developing within your businesses. Obviously, Rich, you have commercial as well as packaging divisions. How do you build sales for that? Is it more acquisition based? Is it contacts, networking, referral, contracts, et cetera? I guess I'll start with Rich and then I'll expand out to April and Mike as well.
Sure, hotspot. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's been very relationship driven. I mean, we're a strange company as far as our growth strategies go. We're pretty dead set against acquisition or being acquired. We're comfortable the size we're at. Which is difficult too, because when you're not growing, it's dangerous, right? So we need to be growing internally, and we need to be developing and you know, developing new talent internally, and also developing new ideas and concepts and processes and that sort of thing. So we're just getting better at our size, mainly because, you know, the size that we're at for our market in this city, we really feel is the right size for this market in this city for what we do. And you know, we're focused on doing what we do really well, as opposed to constantly growing into other markets and doing other things. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's not acquisition. And for our sales growth, it really is just more old-fashioned, doing a good job for you know, for customers who they don't end up staying in one spot for very long. So they move around and we move around with them, and referrals and back and forth. And it's kind of a slow burn, organic growth kind of policy for us. And you know, we bring people on board to our team that really fit our ethos, and you know, make sure that whenever someone's interacting with someone from Flash, that they get the same kind of service that we kind of pride ourselves on. So it really is organic. Short answer is organic. Long answer is all that crap that I just said.
Yeah, Bill Ellis, the owner of the Ellis Group, but his was always acquisition. I mean, he would take smaller companies that typically may not have been doing so well, go after their sales, utilize what some of the people and equipment that they had, and expand what he already had existed. So for the Ellis, it's always been about finding the smaller companies and sales, and then growing from that. But again, that's been Bill's thing, and having a team of people that take those companies that were weak or almost bankrupt and turn them right around and make it a success story. So I think acquisition was for the Ellis Group.
Yeah, I think well, Bellwick is an acquisition as well, through growth. But I think there's also elements in today's world that look at organic growth, I think if you get into, national, international customer, the blue chip customers, if you can go deep and wide within their brands and expand out, that's some of the organic growth that you can look to. But definitely acquisitions, I think, is just part of the business world today, whether you're in packaging or you're in any other business segment that we competing because of the globalization. I think it's just a reality of what we're dealing with today. But I think organic growth is very important too. And it's not just about, acquiring the sales. I think you have to acquire talent. And the one thing that I would say is that in some of the packaging segments, the life cycle of making that sale is much longer than in some other sales acquisitions, because you do have it's if you look at pharmaceutical or food, the switching cost for a customer to switch to a new vendor, as we've kind of highlighted earlier with all the certifications and audits, that's a big part of that consideration if you're looking to develop a new relationship. So if you are, if your sales team is out pursuing those relationships, you have to expect a longer life cycle for the sale, for sure.
Yeah, you want that repeat order.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Next question might be more for Thomas. In terms of the push for some more environmental considerations, obviously more stocks, different thicknesses of board, things like that, different coatings. How is that affecting the development of UV or low migration inks? Is it constantly, you're constantly having to test and reformulate based on the different substrates that are now available?
Yes and no. Also, there's a push within our company to get this topic before sustainable, and also but when it comes to sustainability for inks, for example, it's not about only recyclability and biodegradability and biorenewable content. It's also coming. So we're getting asked and looked at as partners in the industry. What are we doing in sustainability in terms of our processes? How do we manufacture our product? What is our carbon footprint? Do we use solar energy? Are we doing water recycling plants? And so on. This is a big part when it comes to our products. And I think Mike already mentioned vegetable-based inks. That's something we stopped using, for example, mineral oil maybe 6 or 7 years ago, moving into packaging, because that's one of the products when it comes to let's say, mineral-based ink oils. They are not evaluated from a toxicological point of view, and so they have a very, very small specific migration limit then, and it cannot be used. We took out completely cobalt dryers 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Fantastic. Another question here, actually, probably one of our last, because we are getting close to an hour, which is fantastic. Time's been flying, which is great. And lots of participation from our attendees as well. So I'd encourage our attendees, if you have any questions for the panel, please submit them now. I'll ask one more, and then I'll turn to some of the attendees' questions. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you were seeing in your respective businesses? Equipment, staffing, sales inventory cycles, et cetera. I know we've touched on a little bit, but if you can kind of consolidate an answer for those.
Well, I would say all of the above. I think, our business, the capital expenditures that go into our business are extensive. And as I alluded to earlier, in the packaging side, you've got not just the big machines out in the plant floor, but you got all the tools that have to go along with your testing and your labs and all of that kind of stuff. And I think, one of the things as an industry we have to continue to do is introduce young people to our industry, not only on the suit side of the business, but on the trade side. We need to do a better job in being advocates for the skilled trades that are required in our industry. They, financially they pay well. And it's not like, 20, 30 years ago, not that we're dating ourselves here, that we're that far back, but it was an industry perceived to be, kind of a dirty industry. But now if you're, it's really about tech savvy, skilled trade people who want to produce and have the opportunity to run, high-tech equipment with the extended version of creativity and seeing, your work come out at the other end and being proud of that work. So I think there's a lot of challenges that we're all facing. And I don't think there's one that I would highlight as any more or less.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's a culmination of all the different aspects, really. But yes, good points.
Yeah, I mean, the CapEx is whatever. It's completely out of balance in this industry altogether. It always has been. I think if you explain this business model to someone today who was, starting out, it's bananas. Just spend tens of millions of dollars and then that gets you at the table so you can fight for 10-20%. Like, oh, okay, no thank you. But when you're in, it is what it is, right? So you got to keep up, and it depends where you are in your spending cycle, right? So yeah, I mean, it's always frustrating, constantly pouring money in to support and to stay on the edge and to make sense of it. And then yeah, same point on the labor side. Finding people who are excited to get involved in anything manual. Like I think, I'm a Gen Xer, so my generation and down definitely have all been told that they should go to university and get a good job, and a good job is one at a big company in front of a computer. And I'd argue the opposite at this point. I think it's very fulfilling to actually do something, and to actually see the fruits of your labor, and to craft something and watch it go out the back door and then on to the next challenge, and it actually is in front of you and it exists. I think it's really this virtual world that people are finding themselves in is a it has its ups and downs, but certainly with my young girls, I just want them to actually be able to do something. I don't even care what it is. It's just people are going to be ordering other people to do something from their phone. And I just want my girls to be one of the people that does the thing instead of one of the person who is completely helpless if the app doesn't work, So, so anyways, that's a bit of a segue, but I guess what I'm saying is, luckily because of our size, it hasn't been too hard to find some young, enthusiastic people who share my point of view. But if we had to find hundreds of them, I wouldn't even know where to begin. When they come in, they are a rarity, and they say that that their parents think they're crazy for going into print and that kind of thing. And print just isn't what anyone believes it is. The print of today isn't the dead print of the mid 90s. We've evolved and we're doing a lot of interesting things, and it's hard to convince people that. And frankly, I'm more interested in talking to the person who I don't have to convince that of. So just about finding them.
Exactly. Well, you're exactly right. With the print, it's a sense of accomplishment. You're creating something. It's tactile in nature. It's measurable. It's physically there. Yeah, it's definitely.
And one last thing, organizational skills is always important in your workplace. Especially in the front part of your office, but also customer service and sales staff having the skills to actually create portals for repeat items and help organize your client, because they're the ones that we find are a lot of them aren't as organized as you would imagine, and we have to hold their hands. So there's the better that we can work with our customers, and that's always a challenge, working with the customers at the other side. So and that way we can better service them. But that is always that is a challenge too, because they may have different locations and different outlets and different things, and they don't even know what their volumes are because they're not keeping track of it. And, they're not basically have the knowledge to give you proper quantities a lot of the time, and they change their quantities. board gets ordered and they do a change and then they don't need as much board, and it's quite a juggling match, and board being one of the most expensive aspects of packaging and throughout the process. The closer and the more organized you can make your customer, the happier and easier it is for you. So that's my final closing statement there on that.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank April, Ray, Rich, and Mike very much, as Thomas as well. Thank you so much today. Thank you to our platinum sponsors as well, our gold sponsors, and thank you to HP for providing the technology for this webinar today. Many of you are aware that in the last 2 days of 2020 saw the passing of two print industry best known statesmen to cancer. Matt Fife, former head of McLean Hunter Printing, at the time Canada's largest printing plant, and Don Gain, former owner and president of Harmony Printing, past chair of the CPIA Government Affairs Committee, and one of the founders of the Canadian Print Industries Scholarship Trust Fund. A memorial scholarship has been established in Don's honor, and as a token of our appreciation to our panelists today for dedicating their time so generously and their knowledge and wisdom, the DIA is making a donation to the Don Gay Memorial Scholarship Fund on their behalf. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found it educational and fun. I know I did. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, February the 17th, 2021, featuring Mark Bohan, Director of Color Solutions at Konica Minolta. The feature will be Technologies and Solutions Shaping the Future of Print. I'd like to thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, panelists, as well. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Have a good day.
Great job, guys.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Thomas. Appreciated
Thanks
you
so
jumping
much.
in there.
You guys were awesome. Thanks so much.
Oh, coming out from behind the curtain here. If this ever turns on. Oh, it went back on. Guys, that we had a lot of retention there.
Just want to make sure you're still recording, Paul.
Oh, okay.